What if you could bowl a cast metal animal sculpture? Well, to find out, I cast a 3-banded armadillo out of brass. I started by wrapping a ball in some plastic wrap and oiling it up a bit. Then I warmed up some thin sheets of modeling wax and built up a layer of it on top of the ball. Using a soldering iron, I welded the individual chunks together. To start sculpting, I pulled up some armadillo stock footage and divided the surface into the various sections. Next up, I defined those sections more clearly. Once everything was smoothed out, I began cutting all of the armor plates into the sculpture. I added some scratches and texture, and lastly blended everything together with a toothbrush to soften the edges. I strapped a rubber band around the equator of the sculpture to begin cutting it in half along that line. Separating the halves was a bit more tricky than I hoped, but I managed. Brushing on some more wax on the inside smoothed out all of the gaps. Following that, I welded on my gating system of 3 influx channels and 3 air escape paths. I also pushed a bunch of nails through the surface, which will later anchor the 2 mold halves together. To cast the plaster mold, I rolled up this plastic sheet into 2 cylinders. Covering the wax and hairspray helps the plaster stick to the surface. Mixing 1 part water with 1 part sand crushed brick mix and 1 part plaster, I mixed up my investment. Then I embedded the 2 halves in the mixture and let it set. Luckily, I managed to just barely fit both molds into my kiln. After plenty of time, all of the moisture and wax is gone from the mold and I can move on to casting. To strengthen the mold, I placed them into metal buckets and stabilized the outside with gravel. I had to cast the 2 halves separately because I didn't have a large enough crucible at the time. Not ideal, but it worked out. After a few hours of cooling, I broke the molds to reveal the sculpture parts. Up until this point, there's no way to know if the cast worked out or if all of the work was wasted. I removed most of the plaster manually and got rid of the last bits through sandblasting. Large burrs and bubbles were chiseled off, the rest taken off on the belt sander and with a Dremel. Then I TIG welded the halves together. Using the belt sander and Dremel again, I ground down and blended the weld seam. I also sandblasted again to equalize the texture further and gave it a nice brushing with this nylon abrasive brush. I applied a very dark patina to really accentuate the deep texture of the sculpture. With a moist Scotch-Brite pad, I brought back the high spots to a lighter color. Lastly, I warmed up the surface with a heat gun and applied a wax finish. When that was dry, I polished it up as the final step of the process. And there you have it. I've been wanting to make a round animal sculpture for a while now, and I'm glad I went for it. I especially like the idea that you can orient it in any direction without it having a true top, bottom, front or back. What do you think about this project? Let me know below and look forward to the next one. I post updates on sculptures and smaller unrelated projects on my Instagram from time to time, so check that out if you're interested. Goodbye!